Jade, do you think that there ever will be a time where we don't dance to this song?
I don't think so. We'll be dancing to this song while Rome burns.
I feel though, I mean, it's tricky because it's very happy and welcoming, and this is your hometown drive, by the way. That's the bumper for the hometown drive. And you know, a lot of the times we're talking about serious news stories, but we have this fun, happy song. So sometimes it does make it a little bit difficult to transition, to pivot, if you will, from our silly, happy song, which, by the way, reminds at least the two of us of the Peanuts dance, right? From the Christmas cartoon, right? It's just happy and cute. And
I think that's what makes the music even more required is, you know, on those dark days, especially for us, where we're constantly having to go through all the bad news in town, the good and the bad.
True.
But unfortunately, mostly the bad.
Yeah.
These little moments of lightheartedness are so important for us getting through the day and hopefully for getting our listeners through the day as well.
I know. I agree. It's a good thing. We'll lean into it. Okay, so like I said before, you're listening to your hometown drive on KHTS. That's Jade Aubuchon. She is the host here. I am Jen Sparks, helping Jade with her hosting duties. And like we mentioned, this is a show where we talk about a lot of heavy, hard-hitting news in the Santa Clarita Valley, but then also a little bit of fun, sometimes sports, with Stephen Barrera. And wow, it's absolutely pouring outside. Sometimes we talk about the weather, and currently here in Valencia, seems to be somewhat of a downpour, I guess. You know, it's funny not being from California myself. The weather is such a hot topic. The weather's a hot topic anywhere, but when it rains here, all of the natives, I love you guys. Everyone just freaks out about the rain.
It's the classic, we needed this.
Yes. But you know what? You're not wrong. We did need, hey, maybe this will cool things down. We've had some record temperatures happening here, 106, 107, maybe even higher than that. It's been brutal. So hopefully this brief rain will cool things down for us here in the Santa Clarita Valley. All right, Jade, let's get to business here. I'll hand it over to you before we find something else to distract us here.
Absolutely. So it has been a very busy week in Santa Clarita and a landmark week for multiple reasons, one of which was the 20th annual Youth Grove Walk of Remembrance that took place last night at Central Park. And despite the heat, dozens of people, including myself, went out to Central Park in order to remember 126 young people who have been killed in traffic-related incidents over the last several decades here in Santa Clarita. And this includes, we have had kids who were struck by vehicles, we have had kids who were in cars who were then tragically killed. We have, and I say kids, this is for youth, from, we're talking infants all the way up to their mid-20s. And it is a very broad range of families and people who have been brought together for, unfortunately, the same tragedy, losing a loved one. This started over 20 years ago. So though this is the 20th anniversary of the Youth Grove, this all began back in 2000 when Timothy Lee Reynolds, who was 18, and Daniel Richard Reynolds, who were 15, were killed in a crash on Soledad Canyon Road on February 17th in the year 2000. Their friend, Nikki Ianazzi, 16, was also killed, as well as a driver in another vehicle. And it was all due to a young, distracted driver. After this, Tim and Daniel's parents, Tom and Alice Reynolds, made it their life's purpose in order to protect other families from going through what they experienced, which is losing 2 of their 3 children.
Yeah.
And they tried to turn their grief into traffic safety advocacy. And they actually established the city of Santa Clarita's Blue Ribbon Task Force. They helped establish the Youth Grove. And they established the Every 15 Minutes program that takes place at our local high schools.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I've not heard of that one. Every 15 minutes?
Yes. So every 15 minutes, there are variations of it across the nation. But every 15 minutes, on average, there is at least 1 person killed in a traffic accident. And what this is a full multi-day experience for local high schoolers where there are a few kids who are chosen to take part in the program who will be taken out of class, sometimes without anyone else's knowledge in the school, and declared to be victims of a traffic accident. And then the entire student body is called out to the front of the school, where the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Station and Los Angeles County Fire Department have taken a damaged vehicle and set up a mock traffic accident, complete with fake blood, and often the school resource officer dressed up as the Grim Reaper.
Wow.
And what they will do is they will then have another student who has then been selected to be the DUI driver. And back in the day, what they used to do is have these kids who were selected to be the DUI driver will be taken overnight and brought to the jailhouse, and will often have dinner with the deputies there. Sometimes back in the day, they would let them sleep at the jail. Now I think it's at an actual hotel. And then they take them to court the next day. And a judge would hold mock court for these kids.
Right.
With the kids who die, a lot of them would be taken to the hospital in mock morgue vehicles. So this is a full-on pantomime of a fatal crash.
As a mother to two teenagers, one of whom is just learning to drive, he's 17, I wish that they had the resources and the time to do this for every single student, because what you're saying is they take one student out and the rest of the student body witnesses it, but they almost... It sounds terrible, but you need to kind of scare these kids. It's really the only way.
Very, very impactful. It's been a couple of years since the last time one was held here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The last time I attended one was actually at Saugus High School the week before the Saugus High School shooting.
Oh, geez.
So that was very impactful for me, because I'm seeing all these kids, and then 1 week later, I'm seeing these kids getting led out of the school for a real tragedy.
Right.
So that's my personal weird thing.
Right.
That has definitely impacted me. But the Every 15 Minutes program, I mean, I have friends who are in their mid-30s who remember the Every 15 Minutes program here at local schools, who still talk about how impactful it was. But that was put together by the Reynolds family because of this loss that they experienced, and how much they're trying to impress upon young drivers to be careful. You know, back in the day, we're talking the early 2000s, there weren't cell phones that you were texting on, but there was still drinking, there was still distracted driving, there's still messing around with the radio while your friend... There's all sorts of things that can happen. And that's why we've gone all the way up to 126 young people. And we are at the point now where Deputy Seth Clindworth with the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Station was actually one of the childhood friends of Tim and Danny Reynolds, and actually played soccer with them. And he was one of the attending deputies during this last event. And he noted that the community has to continue promoting safe driving so that no new names are added. This year, 3 names were added to the Youth Grove. That is an average number, in my experience. But the whole motivation behind the Youth Grove and its 126 young tree stumps that have been cut short with the names of each young person on it is so that people who know more, KNOW, add no more names.
Yeah.
So hopefully this will continue as an event. It is very unfortunate. We are now at the 20th year and we are still adding names, but hopefully all of the efforts that the Reynolds family has put together, as well as all of the other family members, has an impact on our young people in order to prevent more fatal traffic accidents.
All right. Well, thank you for the update, Jade. And we'll be back with more Hometown Drive in just a few. Welcome back to your Hometown Drive. Thank you, Jade. A little frog in my throat. We want to pick up again with our coverage of just what's happening in and around the Santa Clarita Valley. We talk about news, of course, and we talk about things that are important to the community. And we have a special guest here in studio with us this afternoon, the Executive Director of Bridge to Home, Diedre Clayton. Welcome, Diedre. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
All right, I'll hand it over to the professional here, Miss Jade.
You did a great job.
Well, first off, thank you so much for joining us. Like Jen said, you are actually the new executive director. I say new, but you joined earlier this summer. Isn't that correct?
Yes. 2 whole months. So new to Bridge to Home and new to Santa Clarita.
Where were you before that?
I was in Washington State, so not new to executive work. I was working up there, working with single adults, also experiencing homelessness, and now I'm here in the sunshine doing it.
So speaking of that, is it very different in Southern California, or
Yeah.
is there any different approaches that you take compared to Washington State?
Oh, we're starting off heavy.
I know.
Absolutely right. There's a completely different culture here too, and I think that's one of the things I'm spending my time doing is this next like 3 to 6 months. What is that really? And so I can preserve how awesome that is and make sure that I'm really tuned in to those approaches that are different. I would say just even thinking about the weather and how that affects people and people being up at certain times or heavier amounts of traffic with people experiencing homelessness is a little bit different too. So that would be a thing. And also resource wise, what you need in Washington State to be a little safe outside is different than what you need in California. And your resources are different, right? And so you have a bunch of system changes right now. You have LASA, you have HSH. I won't get too far into it. And so navigating those is interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure it's always different whenever you go somewhere else. Let me just give a real quick overview of Bridge to Home. For the people who are not familiar with it, this is our main outreach organization for people who are experiencing homelessness. And you serve more than 1,200 individuals annually on average. Bridge to Home provides emergency shelter, housing navigation assistance, case management, additional outreach, and supportive services to help not only individuals, but also families who are experiencing this. That's a lot of work.
It is. And we're very grateful to have a community and a staff that really wants to meet people where they're at and do that work, right? That's one of the things I would say is special about Santa Clarita is you can tell people really care.
Well, we appreciate that. That is something that we always say is that Santa Clarita is the biggest small town you're ever going to experience.
I totally, when people said that to me before, I was like, but now I get it. I completely understand it now.
So what have been your first impressions of Santa Clarita and the people and the organizations that you've linked up with so far?
Sure. It has been a whirlwind. One thing I would say is I reached out to everyone you could possibly think of, from nonprofits to community partners to the city to some of our clients, and everyone has reached back. So I have met with so many people. One of the things I would say that sticks out for me again is that reach back and that center around like, how can we help? What does that look like? And I feel like that's been one, amazing, and two, really interesting that as I'm doing this and trying to figure out what the voice of Santa Clarita is that everyone has a very particular view of what that voice is, right? And so some people have certain beliefs and that is Santa Clarita to them. Other people have certain beliefs and that is Santa Clarita to them. But the tie is that love for the community and the neighbors.
So given what you have learned about Santa Clarita, and now that you've come from very different areas compared to Santa Clarita, what makes tackling homelessness in Santa Clarita different? How is it the same compared to other places? And what are some of the biggest challenges that are facing people here?
Sure. So I think one of the things here is more, one, the affordability, right? One of the stories I just recently have had the pleasure and the opportunity to learn about is someone being priced out and then coming to live into their car and then coming to our shelter and then having to spend 2 years trying to navigate to kind of rebuild, right? And she went to Saugus. I don't know if I'm saying this
Saugus, you got it.
I'm new, right? I'll get there, right? Give me 6 months. High school, right? And so I think that one of the things that's unique here is I think there's a little bit more invisible homelessness, and then also too that the pricing of housing and how, it's not just here in particular, but California, everywhere. We know the economy is really bad. And a lot of people don't have the safety nets. So I think that's a little bit of the difference here. I think that there also too, is very much the stigma around experiencing homelessness. So people aren't wanting to maybe identify. So there's a lot more couch surfing that I think, that's from and I'm new here, right? And so this is just my perception for right now. And so I think the different approach that I'd love us to take is what are the faces of homelessness? What does that actually look like?
Deidre, you just mentioned invisible homelessness.
Yeah.
Is that the phrase that you use? Can you explain that to me a little bit? Like something that you can't see.
Sure. Yeah.
In terms of how they're living and how they're surviving. Can you go into detail on that?
Sure. I think just to put it out there, like a true thing is when people think of people experiencing homelessness, you think of someone that maybe is disheveled, that maybe is experiencing mental health, or, maybe their behavior is erratic. That's what people tell me then when they're thinking of people experiencing homelessness. There's all different versions of why someone is in that particular point, and I won't get too far in it, but they defunded the mental health system a while back, which is continuing to have issues with us, right? So one of the things that when you're thinking about this too is that there are a lot of people that are couch surfing or living in their car, and because they don't want to be associated and they don't maybe want which we know there should not be discrimination, but there is that, right? So they don't want to maybe tell their employer. They maybe don't want to tell people, especially with families. They don't want to tell because they don't want the not only the eyes on, but will someone maybe take away my child? Am I an inept mother? Am I a bad person? This is my fault, right? So there's a lot of shame and stuff that goes with that. And I'd also there's not a lot of youth services. So when you're thinking about here, 18 to 26, there is a day center. There are, and I believe there's an organization that is helping too, but there also are those people that are kind of transient as
between.
Well. Right. And
Yeah.
they don't have a place that they call their actual home where they can get their actual mail. Right. And I would say that that's a thing here. One thing that I've noticed is a little bit different, maybe in culture, is when I was in Washington State, the clients identified, yes, I'm experiencing, just very, I don't know how to say it, maybe more open than even here when I'm at the shelter experiencing, it's kind of like
There's a shame attached to
more
it.
of a shame. And I don't know also too, I think that goes again to the approach of it, right? I think I would love it to be more open, and it is we're not looking at what you did, but how can we move you forward, right? And I think that it's really hard for people to have some experiences and it feels like what you did versus how can we move you forward. So I'd love to make sure that I'm not only capturing that, but ensuring that our staff and everyone around us is doing that, even within the community, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think a few of those organizations you may have been referencing would be organizations like Fostering Youth Independence,
Yes.
which is a transitional program
Yes.
for foster youth who obviously, I didn't move out of my parents' home until I was 28 because I couldn't afford it. And I was lucky. I have parents who support me and want to support me. What about foster youth who are potentially losing all of their support as soon as they turn 18?
100%.
You can't even rent a car until you're, 25?
Exactly.
What are you supposed to do?
And then you need to make 3 times the rent, and then you need to be able to come up with that money, and then you need to also appear like you have it all together when your brain is not even fully no shade. My son is 21. No shade, but your brain isn't fully developed, and that's it's difficult, right? And so I think again, so what I was noticing here is even some of the interactions with clients, I want them to take a little bit more pride. You actually came and got services. You're here, and that's amazing, right? And we need that. We need you to participate, so that way we can truly move you forward.
So for listeners who may not be familiar with everything that Bridge to Home does, it's not necessarily that you guys are just going out and doing the typical homeless count, which obviously happens every January. What other services do you offer?
Well, you did a great job earlier. I feel like we should soundbite that back in of what we do. We do everything. When you're thinking about the continuum of experiencing homelessness, it's our Feed It Forward program. So you can come in and get a meal. You don't have to stay at our shelter. You can come in and get a shower. You can do your laundry. You can do all of that to people that are at the shelter that are engaging in case management. Case management is really interesting because you're really trying to meet someone where they're at in all aspects. So sometimes it could be they need help with a divorce, they need help with veteran papers, they need help connecting to Medicaid, Medi-Cal. There you go. I've learned something. I'm so new here. Doing a good job. So anyway, it's connecting them to all of those things, and also to digging a little deeper about what are their barriers, right? So just because we're fixing some of those, what are the ways that we can make sure that you're sustainable once you move into housing? We're a great support network while you're going through that, but after that, we also have case management to ensure that, food instability is a thing. That is a real thing that people also don't really like to talk about. If you're paycheck to paycheck, there are going to be times you might need to use a food pantry or a food bank, whatever the language here is in California.
We have both of them.
Okay, well,
We have
shout out
both
to
of them,
that. We
so.
need all other resources, right? You might need a little assistance to be able to get from point A to point B to a medical appointment. You might need those things, but those all keep you housed. So we do all of that. We do that with single adults as well as families. At our shelter, we have eight units for families, which is really beautiful. It has their space. It also has areas for them to have food and all of those things. There's a beautiful. Have you ever been there actually?
I have.
Oh,
I have.
okay.
I managed to go while you guys were both under construction
Okay.
and when it first opened.
Oh,
actually.
okay. Okay. So now it's been lived in.
Okay.
So
I
you
haven't
got to
seen it
come
in
see
that
the
many
scuffs
times.
on the paint. You let it, you know what I mean? You got to come see it. But as you know, the space is just really inviting and warm and amazing, right? And so
Yeah.
having that not only for the families, but the staff and the single adults is beautiful to me. I loved that it was so open.
I do have to ask because you brought up a very broad range of people who are impacted. Can you give me an overview of the demographics? Because we've talked about veterans, we've talked about families. In my personal experience as someone who grew up here in Santa Clarita, I knew a lot of kids who couch surfed pretty much their entire way through high school.
Right.
What are the demographics that you mostly serve at Bridge to Home as a broad overview?
Sure. This also is a heavy question. So I'm not sure that I have 100% of the demographics for you, but I would say that the majority are in their 40s, which is really interesting again because it's skewing. We have 100 people, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our families are younger and BIPOC population. If I'm going to speak transparently, if you're looking at homelessness, it disproportionately affects people of color. There's a ton of reasons why, and I don't want to get into it, but that is part of what we're seeing also when we're serving too, is that our families of color that are in the community that are paycheck to paycheck also are having to utilize our services a little bit more. Not to polarize people, but that is part of how we are here.
It's very true. We here at KHTS are very heavily involved in the Santa Clarita Valley Food Bank or SC Grocery.
Yeah.
So we are very closely linked with them. They actually run underneath our 50C3 umbrella associated with KHTS Radio. So
Yeah.
we are aware of who our neighbors are,
Yeah.
who are in need. And the best way that I have heard homelessness described is that you have to remember that most of America is just one bad day away from homelessness.
100%.
You're just one bad day. And
Yeah.
there is no shame in that
Yeah.
if that is economic reality.
And that's the truth. And a lot of people don't have the safety networks. They don't have that extra cushion, right? So you injure yourself at work, you run out of the LNI, your rent is past due. What is
fire
happening?
burns down your
Fire
business.
burns. Oh my goodness. Also, I am condolences to
Yes.
everything that's happening right now and prayers to everyone. I know it's a very hard time. But anything can happen. And then how are you rebuilding? Not everyone has the access to rebuild or knows how to. And that's really hard, right? And navigating systems is hard in general. You know, going to the DMV is a little stressful sometimes. Imagine not having all of the resources to be able to do that or the mental capacity because you are so stressed.
Yeah, it's homelessness as my experience, which obviously I'm looking at it from the outside in, so feel free to correct me at any point, is so multifaceted. And I feel like sometimes people tend to take a look at what you've said as visible homelessness and go, oh, I could never be that.
Yeah.
But they don't take a look at invisible homelessness or want to take a look at the possibility of that one bad day.
100%.
As a part of your goals here, now that you've come to Bridge to Home, what are you looking at to try to accomplish in the next couple of years?
Thank you. And also thank you for that. And you're completely right. Homelessness is multifaceted. It is diverse and there isn't a one fixed thing, and especially not when we have an economy and we're a capitalist society. It's really hard to do certain things, right? And I'm not against capitalism. I'm just saying that's part of it. I just want to
It's
be
the
clear.
reality.
It's the reality, right? And so for me, one of my goals too is to educate around what is it, the faces of homelessness. A lot of times what you're referencing is someone that's chronically homeless. That means they're experiencing not only co-occurring disorders, but maybe mental health and have been outside or been experiencing this for over 12 months, right?
Yes.
So that it does take some wear and tear. And one thing I'd also like to challenge us is we have the opportunity to go to our houses and maybe unwind and relax and maybe yell a little bit, or we have the opportunity to release stress and do these things. A lot of times I think people are looking at other people's behavior, not recognizing they don't have a safe space. They don't have a safe space at all to have any of those feelings. I'm a congregate shelter. That means you're coming and yes, we're providing shelter for you, but you also don't have the space to completely be emotional. So one of the things I really want to do is up-level our trauma-informed approach and educate the community on what it is to be experiencing homelessness, as well as diversify our funding. A lot of our funding is government funding, which comes with contracts, which is really amazing. But those contracts also have certain things in them that maybe like prolong or don't help us be able to get to where we really want to go or really to meet the need of the community.
Thank you so much for joining us. If people want to learn more, I believe they can go to your website at btohome.org. Yes. Is there any other final thoughts you'd like to share with our community?
Thank you so much for all the support. Bridge to Home has been around 30 years, and last year served over 100,000 meals, and that's from the community. And if you ever want to have a conversation or want to do anything or donate, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. This has been Diedre Clayton, Executive Director of Bridge to Home. If you'd like to learn more, go to btohome.org or go to hometownstation.com.
And welcome back to your Hometown Drive with Jade, Aubuchon, and Jen Sparks. We want to say thank you to Diedre for joining us in studio here with Bridge to Home. And again, the website, if you're interested in helping out, maybe donating your time, your funding, your, I'm assuming they would take in any kind of donations, physical donations,
even just attention.
Yeah. It's
btohome.org. Perfect. And that was a fantastic conversation, but it was very topical, especially considering this week we have had unfortunately a historic day here in Santa Clarita with the loss of essentially 85% of a city block in our historic Old Town Newhall. On the early morning hours of Monday, a fire started and chewed through several businesses. The fire started at about, just before 3 in the morning, got up into the attic of a nearly century-old building, and once it got into the attic, it just chewed through these businesses. Thankfully, the fire was in the middle of the night, so nobody was hurt. But we are talking about still the main building that was destroyed. It was built in 1935, and it was the one that housed the former El Trocadero, the Care Tucker Style House, which is a locally owned fashion house, the Main, which was the only independent theater facility in all of Santa Clarita. It was formerly known as the Repertory East Playhouse. Source, which is an art dealer who had an office in the area, and then there was additional damage to Gary's Auto Collision Center. And this is crazy because, we just moved away from Main Street
6 months ago. Yeah.
In March, and now I'm looking at Main Street and half of it's gone. Half of it is just dirt and rubble and ash.
It's not the Main Street that we left.
No, not at all. This fire is under investigation, and we are expecting to hopefully get answers on that in the next couple of months. But in the meantime, multiple GoFundMes and the community in general, once again, Santa Clarita showing the best of itself, have come together to put together GoFundMes and support for not only the businesses that were destroyed, but also the employees. The Newhall Refinery is a gastropub. It was actually Santa Clarita's first gastropub that was destroyed also in the fire. Other restaurants have reached out to say, hey, if you were employed at the Newhall Refinery, send us your resume. We'll at least be able to get you temporary work while you get back on your feet. And I know that specifically the Pizza House, the Society Pizza House over by the Limley reached out
right
specifically.
On the corner there.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that place. It's very good.
I haven't had a chance to go.
Oh, it's excellent. Yes. I mean, I love anywhere on Main Street. Main Street is just so... It's I don't know. It's very charming, and the word character is always thrown around, but I really feel like it has so much character, and I'm saying present tense has.
It does.
Because it will come back.
We will rebuild.
We will rebuild, and it'll take some time, but it's so unique. You don't really see that in other areas of the town and other cities completely. It's a really special place. So even if those 4 or 5 buildings were completely empty and the fire tore through empty buildings. It's still heartbreaking to think that historic buildings, you just said, over 100 years old, that's such a shame to see those go up in flames.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because it was it had a false Spanish front. They actually came into existence as, granted, 1935. That's not the oldest thing in the world, but when it comes to Santa Clarita, that is one of our older buildings.
Yeah.
And we were very lucky that the fire did not spread any further south and destroy the Canyon Theater Guild,
Right.
which is not an older building. It was actually only built in 2000, but it has a very nice facing. And just on the other side of the Canyon Theater Guild is the very first Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Station. That was the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Substation number 6. It was built in 1926.
Wow.
And as of August 23rd, the local Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Station just celebrated their 100-year anniversary. So we are very lucky that that was not destroyed, because having them celebrate their 100-year anniversary on Sunday and then Monday, the building burning down, would have been horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's heartbreaking. And you had kind of touched on it before, the fact that it's people that we know.
Yes.
That you're not just watching this on TV, and of course anybody with empathy would understand that this is horrible, and then you move on to the next thing. But these are people that we know on a personal basis. We've been in these locations. We've had them in here for interviews, like specifically the Maine, obviously. We just had them in here last week on the morning show with Delgado and myself, and they were talking about their upcoming play, You Got Older. That was, I think they were able to get in that weekend those performances, and they were set to perform again this weekend, and obviously that's not happening. It's just heartbreaking.
No. And it's not just the loss of the businesses, especially in the case of the Maine. You're talking about the loss of thousands of dollars worth of personal equipment because it is community theater. He was actually my theater teacher at College of the Canyons, David Steers, who is the head of the Santa Clarita Shakespeare Festival. He was assisting in that show. He lost $6,000 worth of lighting and tech equipment. All of the costumes for the show are gone. Jane Hicks, who is a local artist, because the Maine is partially run by the city of Santa Clarita, she had an art showcase happening there at the Maine. She has lost half of her collection in one fell swoop. And it's devastating to see how far-reaching this loss has been. And everybody's looking for answers.
Yeah.
How did this happen? How is
Yeah.
the short answer. So we will be looking into that. We do know that the Los Angeles County Fire Department is doing an investigation. We do know that obviously insurance investigators are also doing an investigation, because we know from experience from our own offices over there on Main Street exactly how much those buildings are. And that's not even getting into the art dealer.
Right. Yeah. And just the goods that are inside of those four walls. We have an idea of where it started, right? And like you said,
Correct.
they're still investigating the where and the why, more specifically the why.
Yes.
But we do have an idea of where.
Correct. There have been a lot of questions about this. As of this point, the Los Angeles County Fire Department believes that the fire started at Gary's Auto Collision Center, which has been in the headlines over the last couple of months. And this is partially what is feeding a lot of the rumors here in Santa Clarita. So we do know that the fire started at Gary's. Exactly how it started is still under investigation by arson investigators from the LA COFD, from the LASD, and from insurance investigators as well. But the reason why it was in the news is because Gary's Auto Collision Center had actually been accused of holding clients' vehicles and then putting liens on them after not doing work, according to what the owners of those vehicles had said.
Right.
I do know that I spoke to the owner of one of those vehicles. His name is Mark Haberman. He brought in a truck over 18 months ago to be repaired. And from what Haberman alleges, no work was ever done on that truck, and he has not been able to get it back.
And we just did a story on hometownstation.com. You can locate that. We just did one last week, maybe a couple weeks ago.
There
I
was
guess.
one in July I know that we did where Gary's Auto was accused of withholding vehicles and filing six-figure mechanics liens against those vehicles when, according to what the vehicle owners say no
Right.
work was ever done. So there has been quite a bit of back and forth. There have been in headlines for major news sources, but we do know that there had been a recent development in this lawsuit. There is also an eviction case that had been filed against Gary's Auto Collision Center just within the last week.
Okay.
So it was very specifically the Wednesday before the fire. There had been movement on this eviction case pertaining to Gary's Auto Collision Center. So that has also fed a lot of the questions
Sure.
about what is happening here. You also have to remember that the owner of Gary's Auto Collision Center had another business that experienced a fire last year. Now, the cause of that fire is, as of this point, undetermined, according to the Los Angeles County Fire Department. But as a community here in Santa Clarita, it's both a good thing and a bad thing. We're very tightly knit, and a lot of people have questions. And so a lot of people are asking the same questions we are is, hey, we've lost this historic district. The fire started at this auto collision center, which is currently going through these lawsuits, and another business that was owned by one of the people involved also experienced a fire within the last 13 months. So there's a lot of questions swirling.
Yes.
So
It would make anybody's eyebrows raise,
absolutely.
to say the least. And it seems like something out of a movie. Just the entire situation, the whole entire thing, any aspect that you talk about, it feels fake still. It feels like, did this really happen?
Yes, and we are hoping to get some more answers as to what the next steps are for Old Town Newhall and specifically Main Street tomorrow, actually, on Eye on the Valley, as one of our representatives from the city of Santa Clarita is going to be joining Matt tomorrow morning. So hopefully we'll be getting some answers from the lovely Carrie Lujan, who is one of our public information officers for the city of Santa Clarita, as she explains more about what comes next, because Old Town Newhall is our arts district. It had become the center of entertainment. We were going to have Light Up Main Street there.
Yeah.
What are the steps for that? Just 1 week before the fire, you had Senses, and specifically the time travel themed block party,
Right.
which the Newhall Refinery had acted as the bar for. So
That's right. Yeah.
it's very sad to see all of this, and hopefully we are going to get some concrete answers soon, not only for the cause, but also for how is Santa Clarita going to rebuild.
Well, how? And yes, it will take some time, obviously, like we were saying before, we will, but it's one thing to say that, and then now it's another thing to figure out the logistics of that. Like, okay,
The logistics.
yes,
absolutely.
we will, but now how do we do that? What's the first step?
Well, first step realistically is probably waiting for the arson investigation to complete. That way insurance payouts can be made. And because the property is still owned, a good portion of it is owned by Frank Maga, who is a local landlord, local business owner who has lived here in the Santa Clarita Valley for several decades. Figure out what he is going to be able to do with his property.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's obviously an ongoing story, needless to say, and we will do our best here. You, Jade, and Louie, and the rest of the team here at KHTS. Keep an eye on hometownstation.com. Keep an eye on any of our socials. Any update that we have, obviously, we'll bring to you. I'm interested in tuning in tomorrow with Matt's show. I was unaware of that. That's going to be a good interview. So we'll watch this space literally and figuratively, and we wish the best for everybody over in Old Town Newhall on Main Street. We are here for you, and we will rebuild.
We will rebuild. We miss Main Street.
I know, I do too. All right. Well, thank you, Jade, and thank you for listening to your Hometown Drive. And we will join you again right here next week at the same time, 2 p.m. on KHTS.